April 10th. President Trump took to Truth Social and responded saying China played it wrong. They panicked. The one thing they cannot afford to do. The president also responded in person and explained that this is what he expected. Take a look.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable.
And here with me to discuss this is Congresswoman Julia Letlow of Louisiana's 5th District. Representative Letlow, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bo.
Absolutely. Well, certainly the new tariffs are on everybody's mind. Wall Street reacted very unfavorably to them. So did China, as we just talked about. And many Americans are kind of queasy. But President Trump described it as operating on a patient that's now in recovery. What do you think is a sensible timeline for Americans to see us come out of this initial surgery, so to speak, as the president negotiates and into a period of recovery and economic boom?
Well, I think the president is absolutely right. When I'm talking to constituents back home, I tell them to first take a big breath and know that the president is playing the long game here. It's about leveling the playing field for our businesses in America. It's about putting America first and making sure that we are doing business right here in our homeland. So I'm telling everybody, trust the president. You know, 8 years ago, we had one of the strongest economies under his presidency, and I have no doubt that we will see all of that play out during his second term.
Absolutely. Well, it's a tough time, but I think you're right. He's leveling the playing field, and we just got to see the bigger picture, which he sees, and I think a lot of people can't. In what could be this tough time, potentially, Ford announced a From America for America plan where they will offer cars to consumers at employee pricing. Now, that's one immediate positive effect from the American side. What are your thoughts, Congresswoman, on this initiative by Ford, and do you think maybe other American companies will follow suit?
Absolutely. And it's exciting to see, you know, right here in Louisiana, we have a positive outcome as well. Our shrimpers, seafood farmers, crawfish producers have been seeing a slash in their pricing when they're trying to sell their produce in our country, because they've been seeing all of this foreign shrimp and crawfish coming in from Asia and other countries and selling it much cheaper here. I have talked to so many producers right here in Louisiana that could not be more ecstatic that the president is for them and is championing them so that they'll be able to sell their produce at a level playing field at a wonderful cost. So I'm excited about what this means for Louisiana, for other companies all across the country.
Well, you're mentioning crawfish now, and Congressman, I got to be honest, that makes me want to go to Louisiana right now. That's such a great part of Louisiana culture. Now, you'll be voting soon on the SAVE Act, and you've talked about it. It's illegal to vote as a non-citizen, but it's always been just under the penalty of perjury, kind of the honor system. The SAVE Act codifies integrity by requiring proof of citizenship. Now, in some rural districts, like some of the areas in your district, do you foresee any problems with citizens maybe finding their birth certificates or traveling to voter offices to provide that proof?
I don't at all. And the constituents that I speak with, they are excited about this. It's really just common sense legislation. I can't believe that we're even having to codify this. But yes, they are excited that we will be taking these people off the voter rolls and making sure that we have fair and safe elections moving forward.
Absolutely. And the president has made that very clear, and it's been a priority for him. And it sounds like it's a priority for constituents in your district as well. Well, you also have talked about wanting Congress to pass a farm bill to protect farmers. I know that's important to you. What sorts of things do you want to see in a comprehensive farm bill that will help your farmers?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, in Louisiana, we struggle with natural disasters, and our farmers are always facing those here. So I want to make sure that we have a farm bill in place that will make sure that that funding is available to them. We want to make sure that they have the necessary means to be able to plant and produce. Farming is not just about putting food on the table. It's a matter of national security, and we have to be able to feed ourselves in order to protect our country. So I'm excited about getting this farm bill across the finish line. I'm encouraging my colleagues to make sure that we get it done. There's really no excuse now for us not to push this across the finish line. Our farmers are depending on it. Again, they're holding the strong green line for our country.
How soon do you think, Representative, that a bill like that could make it through Congress? What are your expectations?
Well, I'm hopeful. We have an amazing agriculture committee under the leadership of Chairman G.T. Thompson. I think sometime during the summer. I know that they're really pushing hard. They're working hard, putting their head down, doing the good work to make sure that we have a strong Republican-focused farm bill to move forward.
Well, Congresswoman, you tweeted out on X, I was looking at your account on X, that border crossings have dropped to record lows under this new President Trump, well, second-term President Trump. People elected Donald Trump to do this, and that's a stark contrast with the Biden administration. We've already seen rapid arrest of MS-13 gang members, and surely a better border means a safer country. How do you see this quick action by the president?
Well, it is a welcome action. Promises made, promises kept. And as a concerned mom myself, worried about my own children, I want to make sure that we are decreasing those illegal border crossings. And to put it in perspective, for March, we reported 7,000 illegal border crossings. In March, just last year, there were 137,000 illegal border crossings, though. That is a historical number to bring those down. All the thanks to President Trump and his team for delivering on his promise to keep our country safe and to keep my kiddos safe.
Yeah, that's right. Our kids need protecting, and that's why this is important. Well, I got to ask you about this. Meta had a big announcement for Richland Parish, and Hyundai had a $5.8 billion steel plant announcement for Ascension Parish because Trump promised to protect American steel and place tariffs on imports. What do you expect, Congresswoman, for that to do for Louisiana's economy?
This is an absolute game changer. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around in Northeast Louisiana what a $10 billion investment will do for our rural communities, but it will be the shot in the arm that we've been praying for so long, creating jobs, bolstering our economy. This is the answer that we've been looking for, and it's all thanks to President Trump and his policies. We're moving in the right direction finally, and we have these amazing leaders in Louisiana leading the charge. So all of that is consequence of these amazing policies that President Trump is putting forward. So I could not be more ecstatic, but you're absolutely right. It is the shot in the arm that we needed.
That's a big investment from Meta and from Hyundai. I'm impressed with it, and I think we'll see more of that. But again, that's part of President Trump's promises. And like you just said, promises made, promises kept. I want to ask you, to your opinion, with the Department of Education to become dismantled, how will a state like Louisiana make sure that our students are competitive worldwide? My mom was a public school teacher in Shelby County, Tennessee for about 40 years. And so I got a kind of a firsthand look of what was going on with our students. And thankfully, she taught in a great district in a great school. That's not true, nationwide. So how do you expect Louisiana at the state level, if the federal department's going to be dismantled, to compete and make our students more competitive worldwide?
Well, first, thanks to your mom. She is a hero in my eyes. But I am so excited about defederalization of the education department and that power going back to the states and also our local school boards and our local communities. We know best how to educate our children, embolden, empower the administrators, teachers, parents in these local communities to be able to take back some of that power to be able to educate our children. Last Congress, I was able to put forward the Parents' Bill of Rights. Who in a million years would have thought we would need a Parents' Bill of Rights? But after COVID, what we saw is this overreach by the federal government labeling parents as domestic terrorists for going to their school boards to raise their concerns about what their children were being taught. This is a perfect example of how the federal government needs to back off and stay out of the education process for our kiddos. So I'm incredibly encouraged by what's happening with the Department of Education, and I know that that Title I funding that so many of our rural communities depend on will make its way down to the states, and they know best how to disseminate those funds to make sure that every child receives an education.
Congresswoman, before I let you go, you spend a lot of time in your district. What do Louisianans in your district tell you they want you to do? What are the top 2 or 3 things now that you're an elected official? They say these are really important things to us. We want you to represent us and get these things done.
Mostly, Bo, what I hear is they want the federal government just to stay out of their business. They want deregulation. They want to be able to run their small businesses in their communities. They want to be able to farm their land without all of these burdensome regulations and red tape. They're also very concerned about the border, but not so much so anymore because they've seen real change there. They're excited about where our country is going, the future that we're creating for our children and our grandchildren, and that we're also finally, for the first time, Bo, addressing a $36 trillion deficit that we are going to place on their backs. So I would say the majority of my constituents truly feel like the country's headed in the right direction.
Well, Congresswoman, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you for being with me. And also, I think I'm going to have to get down to your district and keep those crawfish coming.
Come on, it's crawfish season.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, don't go anywhere. More news of the day coming your way on America's Voice Live. Colorado. Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Well, the world is reacting to President Trump rolling out his reciprocal tariffs. Some world leaders are asking to negotiate, and others are threatening counter tariffs. Now, as I said earlier, China slapped us with a 34% tariff just this morning, despite stating that there are, quote, no winners in trade wars or tariff wars, unquote. Well, for now, we will have to wait and see how this all folds out and what President Trump is planning to do. Here with me now to discuss this is Rav's chief White House correspondent and a great guy with a great suit always, Brian Glenn. Brian, happy Friday to you. I can't hear Brian right now. Okay. Oh, okay, that's okay, bro. I guess you were muted. You with me, Brian?
There we go. I can hear you. Yes.
Very good, very good. We want to make sure we hear your voice. Well, Brian, we saw the immediate retaliation by China with the 34% tariff. So I guess you could call that a tit for tat, maybe. How will President Trump see that? And how might TikTok, this extension of TikTok, play into this escalation?
That's a great question, but I think what we haven't been mentioning, and most of the media has not mentioned this, is the tariffs that they've been charging us. If you look at that chart, 67%. So hitting them with 34% is not out of the bounds there. That is not anywhere being reciprocal. And I think that as you move forward, and President Trump had a great Truth Social earlier talking about, the first man to the table to negotiate. Look, these are meant to be negotiating tools to bring these countries to the table. When you go down that list, and I was there in the Rose Garden when President Trump rolled this out, when you looked at the list of tariffs that we're being charged right now, American consumers are being charged, it is far more than what President Trump offered up in the Rose Garden. But this is just the starting point. And yes, you're going to have some market reaction. That was to be expected. But you got to think long term here. This is putting manufacturing back in this country, and this will make Americans wealthy again.
Yeah, it's going to take some time for that, I'm sure, and I want to get to that with you in just a minute. But we did see Vietnam take some immediate action by reaching out to negotiate. That seems to be how Trump wanted this to play out, and that's pretty immediate. What are you hearing about other nations that might come to the table? Is anyone else crying uncle yet?
Oh, there's some people calling. I haven't got final confirmation, but what I've been told is there have been several countries reach out wanting to book an appointment, take a phone call, because they're nervous as well. Look, all this has been happy talk with previous administrations of getting our trade deficits finally in balance, but it's never happened until now. And now President Trump, the ultimate negotiator, the ultimate art of the deal, now has brought these people, his phones are ringing, his doors are knocking, and these countries are going to come forward to probably lower their tariffs and make it completely even. Therefore, we can all make money. Look, President Trump doesn't want to cut these countries out where they don't necessarily have. This is some of these smaller countries, they rely on these tariffs, and we get that. But there's some big countries out there. European Union, the second biggest violator in all of this. Vietnam, China. Finally, someone standing up to him, Bo. It just took President Trump to have the guts to do it.
So we mentioned this earlier. How does Trump sell this kind of to the American people? Because, I know I personally saw my own brokerage account take a massive hit. A lot of people are seeing that. You mentioned it with the stock market. And so it's tough because you're sitting here. Now, I'm not planning on pulling any money out. And I think what we were talking about is unless you're planning on pulling a lot of it out, you can probably ride it out. But how's that going to sit with most people? Because I'm sure people are looking at this going, oh my God. They're looking at their account, deplete. Yeah. If the patient is now post-op and he's post-surgery, how long do you think Trump is going to tell people this is going to take for us to start seeing the boom happen again? What's reasonable?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, but I don't think all Americans are actually looking at their stock portfolio. Not all Americans are invested in stocks like you and a lot of people watching us right now. They've just got to go on with their lives and ask themselves, what is costing me on a day-to-day basis? Look, the mainstream media will play this stock market. They will play down the economy. They will find every sobbing story of every small business owner who's struggling due to Trump's tariffs. They will will put that in the forefront for the next foreseeable future, because that's what they do. It's fear, fear, fear. So I just say this. I want the American people to go on with their lives, keep buying your product. Don't hold back on buying anything. If you need it, buy it. Live your life and ignore the negative news. Ignore looking at your portfolio right now. I know it's easy to say that and not do it, but you got to think long term here, because I would probably say a year from now, when you start to see some of the investments come back in this country, some of the manufacturing come back, lower prices. Look, if there's ever been a better time to buy American, it's buy American right now. Everything from cars to clothes to food. Buy it now in America. Made in America, buy it in America.
I thought that
that's what this is
Ford
intended to
initiative
do.
was pretty interesting. That Ford initiative of from America for America. I thought that was very interesting. I hope other companies follow suit. Now, you mentioned this, with your fellow colleagues in the media. You see them every day, pretty much. You mentioned they're trying to pile on with the Democrats and almost make this a fundraising campaign issue, but they were conspicuously silent when Joe Biden let the world rip us off. Where were they then? Was there anybody speaking out and saying, hey, there's a tremendous imbalance, there's a tremendous inequity here? Where were they're piling on now, but where were they for the past 4 years plus?
Yeah. When insurance doubled, food doubled, rents doubled, mortgage rate increases, everything across the board, every consumer of a good or service absolutely doubled the last 3 years. Where were they? Were they in the briefing room asking the questions of why this is happening? Were they questioning Bidenomics? No. They let it go. But all of a sudden, President Trump throws out an idea to equal the trading field in terms of tariffs and international trade, and they go crazy. So they're going to run on this. They're going to put it up front and center. But every pressing room so far, since these tariffs were introduced, it's been tariff, tariff, tariff. They can't stop talking about it. So I just say, let Trump do what he does. Trust Trump. Hashtag Trust Trump. That's what the White House was saying, and that's what I'm saying to the American people. You got to let the man put the plan in place. Trust Trump. Don't trust the media right now. Just go like this. Don't even watch, because they're just going to put a lot of fear in you.
Well, I hope that since you're in Dallas right now, you'll be trusting some Texas barbecue. I hope that happens at some point in your journey there. Brian Glenn, thanks so much for being with me today. As always, thanks always for your excellent reporting. Have a great weekend.
And if there was a tariff on that barbecue, I'd still buy it. I don't care. It's American-made, Texas-made. I'm still going to eat it.
From America for America. Talk to you soon, Brian.
Right. Thank you.
Well, coming up after the break, the legacy media recently tried to say that Elon Musk will be stepping down from Doge, but that isn't the entire truth. I'll explain when we come back. Welcome back to AVL. I'm Bo Davidson, sitting in for the great Steve Gruber. Recently, we saw the left and the legacy media try to fearmonger the public. They reported that Elon Musk is stepping down as the head of Doge. But those claims have been quickly shot down by multiple White House sources. J.D. Vance debunked the legacy media's rumor that Elon Musk was leaving Doge, calling their reports fake news. And he made it clear that Doge is, far from finished. The left are so desperate to stop Elon Musk and Doge from finding their corruption that they resort to fear-mongering. Here with me now to discuss this is the Conservative Caucus President, Jim Pfaff. Jim, thank you so much for joining me on this fabulous Friday.
Glad to be with you, my friend.
Yeah. Well, Jim, why do you think that the left is so desperate for Elon Musk to step down as the head of Doge? Is it corruption? Is it the money faucet drying up? What do you think that it is?
Well, it's day 70-something of Democrats for the bureaucrats. They do not want any reductions in what happens in government because it feeds their electoral system. It feeds their ability to advance anything in the political sphere. And as we learned this last November, everything they stand for is pretty much against what the American public wants. They pushed the envelope during the Biden administration. They began pushing it in Obama, not quite as bad as with the Biden administration. And finally, the American people said, we've had it. They cannot win electoral victories without the support of a government system. By the way, I was looking at numbers recently, doing some employment numbers. Are you aware that 14% of all employment in the United States is government employment when you take state, federal, and local employees? It's crazy.
That's a lot. Yeah. Yeah, that's considerable. And Jim, how far do you think that the corruption actually goes? And do you think that it's prevalent in federal and statewide governments? Does it just run across the board?
Well, if we go from a base of Federalist 51, James Madison made it very clear that if men were angels, they wouldn't need to be governed by anyone. So there's a natural corruption. 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of man. So there's corruption always. What we're trying to do is fight extreme corruption that has no self-restraint. And on that last basis, Washington, D.C. is very corrupt. I spent 8 years on Capitol Hill. You see it in the politicians, you see it in the bureaucrats, you see it in the agency heads. Generally on a regular basis, you've got a corrupt government system. By the way, that's corrupt for two major reasons. There's very real, maybe in some cases, criminal corruption that takes place. But there's just a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's the biggest part of all the corruption in Washington, D.C. That's precisely the stuff that Elon Musk is rooting out with the Doge effort, and he's got a fantastic team to help him do that. I just saw Donald Trump yesterday make a statement saying they found something else big, and he didn't reveal what it was, but he said it was coming. I mean, there's a lot there that's very, very bad.
Well, on that note, for you and what you've seen thus far, and you're tracking this, what is the most surprising thing that Doge has found so far? There's a lot of crazy ones, but what is it to you?
Well, surprising is the depth of fraud, literal fraud, in USAID. So if you want to talk about surprising, I mean, we knew USAID wasn't all that good, but the depth of it was absolutely breathtaking. It literally goes to almost every tentacle of that agency, what it was at least. But the worst fraud is something that some of us may have suspected but didn't know the depth of it, and that's what they found with Social Security and Medicare. It's crazy. I will tell you the worst one, though, absolutely, is the fact that they looked at these Social Security numbers that were given out to illegals, and that was bad enough. But then they compared it, did a sampling of it against voting records, and found out there really are illegals who voted. They just announced this this week, and there's a whole lot more to that story that we don't yet know. Everyone was digging on people for talking about replacement theory. Well, there was a replacement theory taking place. They were literally trying to replace American voters to help their electoral prospects in the future.
Yeah, and they said it never happened. They said it never happened. It doesn't happen. It's rare. It's just a tiny little percentage. And clearly, as they found, it's far more prevalent than that. Well, Jim Pfaff, thank you so much for joining me today on this Friday and your insight.
Thanks so much. Glad to be with you.
Thanks, Jim. Well, it is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do, folks, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't simply going to go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. So now more than ever, you need to be prepared. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. And whether that's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From the flu to strep throat, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America Healthy Again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/voice today and order. That's twc.health/voice and use the promo code VOICE to save 10%. Now, coming up after the break, the left continues to commit violence against conservatives, now attacking TPUSA. Details up next. Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Well, chaos erupted at the University of California, Davis on Thursday when left-wing agitators attacked a Turning Point USA event, once again proving that the radical left will resort to violence to silence conservative voices. During a Prove Me Wrong session featuring former police officer and conservative commentator Brandon Tatum, masked extremists stormed the event, flipping tables, tearing down signage, and destroying camera equipment. Video footage shows the mob physically confronting conservative students. Watch.
Hey! Wow! Hey, get the cops here! Hey. Get the cops!
Joining me now to discuss his political science major at UC Davis and co-chair of UC Davis's TPUSA chapter, Jackson Bonner. Jackson, thanks so much for being with me today.
Bo, thanks for having me.
Jackson, give me a lay of the land as to how this event unfolded.
Of course. So yesterday, we, Turning Point USA at UC Davis, attempted to host political commentator Brandon Tatum over in our quad to foster open dialogue in a variety of political topics, ranging from Black Lives Matter to critical race theory and the support of our local police officers. However, just 15 minutes before our event began, approximately 30 masked Antifa protesters arrived and immediately resorted to violence. They forcefully assaulted us and ran us over, in the process, flipping over our activism table and injuring one of our students in the process, dragging our canopy several yards away and attacking several supporters, leaving our event in ruins and with multiple injuries. Shockingly, during this altercation, 6 or so campus police officers were standing nearby and they did not intervene.
It's interesting that they didn't decide to intervene. Well, Jackson, it seems to me that the left's response to open forum discussion like this that you were doing with TPUSA is violence, and they believe to silence, you must use violence. Would you say that's an accurate assessment of how things unfolded?
I believe so, Bo. I mean, here at Turning Point and our organization, we stand for freedom of speech and open dialogue because that's the only way to get your ideas out and heard in such a heated environment. The left's attacks yesterday just shows that they do not have the facts or the knowledge to fight off our ideas, and their ideas suck, frankly.
Jackson, let me ask you this. You mentioned this earlier, I think you said Antifa, but have any of these extremists been identified now, and have you or TPUSA been able to determine where they came from, or if they were they were funded agitators?
No, sir, we have no idea. As far as I'm aware, no arrests were made and no accountability was enforced. UC Davis and our chancellor have put out your typical PR statement condoning the violence. But that's only saying so much until you can actually go out and put out the work to find these individuals who have attacked us.
So where is UC Davis on this? I mean, if our institutions, our colleges are supposed to be forums of open discussion and free speech, that's what they're supposed to be about. Why in the world would they not make an arrest or hold anyone accountable for tearing down your demonstration? I mean, if this had been a pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza demonstration, would they have arrested people that were interrupting that? Where's UC Davis on this? Have you guys pressed for any answers?
Of course, sir, and you're exactly right in terms of the pro-Palestinian protests. As we were gearing up for this event, we spent multiple weeks with student affairs and campus police, and every now and again they would tit-tat us saying, oh, you need a water permit or an irrigation permit for being on the lawn, or you need a sound permit. And, make sure not to block the walkways for students as they head to class. But when Antifa came onto campus, and even looking last year at these Palestinian protesters, I don't think they had any regard for any of these permits and rules that the campus enforces. So why should we have to follow these rules and go through administration steps for multiple weeks on end, whereas these groups can just come onto campus freely, not ask students at all, and use violence and intimidation tactics to hurt freedom of speech?
Well, Jackson, keep fighting the good fight. I'm sorry what happened to you at that event at UC Davis. I hope that colleges like UC Davis will step up to the plate and hold these people accountable who are agitators, especially if they're funded. But Jackson, keep fighting the good fight, and thanks for being with me today.
Of course. Thank you so much, Bo. You have a great rest of your day.
And you too. Coming up after the break, I'll be discussing Val Kilmer's legacy and his iconic roles such as Doc Holliday, Batman, and of course, Iceman from Top Gun. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. legend recently named Val Kilmer. He died on April 1st at the age of 65. He was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2015 and underwent a tracheal operation that damaged his vocal cords, which made speaking rather difficult. He released a memoir in 2020 called I'm Your Huckleberry, which detailed his health struggles. Film critic Roger Ebert called Kilmer the most unsung leading man of his generation. And for my generation, growing up on Top Gun, he will always be Iceman. I was such a big fan of that movie that I bought the Top Gun video game for Nintendo, and part of my childhood dreams of grandeur involved piloting the F-14 Tomcat. Kilmer was the youngest person to be accepted to the prestigious Juilliard School at that time. He was really a stage actor who made his foray into film with a breakout role in the comedic spy movie Top Secret, in which he sang all the songs in the film. He then went on to star in the 1985 film Real Genius, and then, of course, came Top Gun, playing Tom Iceman Kazansky. Here's an iconic clip from his role.
Still dangerous. You can be my wingman anytime.
You can be mine.
Kilmer went on to play Mad Mardigan in Willow and star in Billy the Kid. When Oliver Stone directed him as Jim Morrison in the film The Doors, Kilmer expressed concern because he didn't want to promote substance abuse, seeing Morrison as a guy who picked the wrong heroes. In the cinematic medium, it's hard to play a rock and roller like Morrison without depicting the substance abuse, but Kilmer found a way to do it without celebrating it. And I think that's really noteworthy because the celebrity lifestyle is one that condones substance abuse and has, as many have intimated, created a pseudo-cult where initiation to that club often involves worshiping the god of self. Kilmer was so dedicated to the authenticity that he memorized several Doors songs when he prepared his audition tape for Oliver Stone. The next iconic role that I remember Kilmer was for was in 1993 with his turn as Doc Holliday in the Western Tombstone. Take a look.
I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo. You look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Fight's not with you, Holiday.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?
I was just fooling about.
I wasn't. And this time,
in 1995, Kilmer starred in the well-known crime drama film Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. Kilmer's portrayal of Doc Holliday in Tombstone caught the attention of Joel Schumacher, who cast him as the new Batman after Michael Keaton relinquished the role. In 1996, Kilmer stepped down from the role, stating that the film had started to favor the villains. And again, I bring this up because just like he had concerns about substance abuse with Jim Morrison, he could see how the hero was now being cast aside in favor of the villain. And when you look at the modern-day versions of Joker and the Penguin, that still holds true. His career continued with The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Saint, the voice of God and Moses in the animated film The Prince of Egypt, as well as the role of a blind man in At First Sight, and roles in Wonderland, Spartan, Alexander, and Deja Vu. And then, of course, in 2022, he reprised his role as Iceman in the long-awaited sequel, Top Gun Maverick. Take a look.
I know. The Navy needs Maverick. The kid needs Maverick. That's why I fought for you. That's why you're still here.
What I think is also noteworthy is that Top Gun and its sequel were movies that were about rooting for America. When Top Gun was released, it was when Ronald Reagan was president, the originator of the Make America Great Again phrase. When Top Gun Maverick was in its initial promotion, fans noticed that Tom Cruise's bomber jacket had been altered in a way that removed the flags of Taiwan and Japan, so as to appease the Chinese Communist Party, who view Taiwan as their property. As the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and the public backlash was so strong that Maverick's jacket was restored back to its original look, thus not caving to how China may perceive it or whether China would permit the movie to be screened there. Now, keep all that in mind as backdrop for Maverick's release, and even where we are today. The original spirit of a great America was exemplified in Top Gun in the 80s, so much so that fans revolted when they saw that a jacket might not be so pro-America anymore. And then Maverick brought back all of that original pro-American nostalgia, showing off our new fighter jets and even a nod to the old F-14 Tomcat. And here we are basically in some sort of economic conflict with China right now, since they've been ripping us off for decades. Seeing Maverick again sort of brought back that loving feeling, as the song goes in the original, the love for America, the America that wins wars and exports freedom. So I find it apropos that with an icon like Val Kilmer passing away, that Val himself was someone who strove to bring value to his characters even when he knew he had to portray their dark sides and vices. He didn't want to glorify the bad virtues. He lamented that villains became more important than the hero Batman. And when you look at film and TV today, well, there are many anti-heroes, unless you watch series like The Chosen and House of David. So as we honor the work and life of such an esteemed actor, I think it's important to value a man who wanted virtue to be celebrated and whose work, especially in Top Gun and its sequel, was noble and reminded us of American exceptionalism and glory. When we have a trade war with China, well, we may no longer fight with rockets and missiles and tanks, but we have to show economic might, and we are now in the throes of it. So I would suggest you go watch the original and the sequel just to remind yourself of how great America is and also how great cinema can be when the better angels of our nature are heralded. And Val, you can be our wingman anytime. Well, the IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option, my friends. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Now, why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which, of course, to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. So stick around. We've got more AVL coming up after the break. welcome back to AVL. Well, President Trump's Friday said that he plans to give TikTok another 75-day extension as his administration nears a deal to avert a ban on the popular social media platform. Here with me now to discuss this is Wyoming businessman and the man who was in talks about buying TikTok, Reed Rasner. Mr. Rasner, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, so Reed, a 75-day extension for TikTok. How might that play into these tariff wars? How do you see that?
Well, I think it gives President Trump some leverage with China to get a deal across the table. A lot of people are working a lot of hours to make something happen for the American people. I trust President Trump. I trust his leadership. It's a tough negotiation, a lot of moving parts. We're dealing with foreign countries, a lot of regulators, an unprecedented business transaction that takes the executive office's approval to get this over the finish line. So a lot of sleepless nights, but we're all working as hard as we can to secure this for the American people, and we're excited to be part of it.
Well, Reed, what's the ultimate solution for TikTok's future? Can it exist with any ties to China? Is this truly a national security issue, as many people claim?
Yeah, it certainly is. The data and how they're using the data is certainly in a nefarious fashion. And is what the Supreme Court in a 9-0 ruling and the United States Congress has come out with is that the algorithm has to have a clean break from China. ByteDance can still have a minority stake in the American TikTok, meaning 20% or less. And our bid truly covers all of these aspects, and we're willing to work with the administration and all of the regulators and national security to make sure that our bid is the strongest and best bid for Americans. But we need to protect the data, and that is paramount, and we're going to certainly do that for President Trump, as well as create his sovereign wealth fund, because we're going to donate 5% of our $50 billion bid to the United States government to get that over the finish line for President Trump, and we're excited to be part of that also.
Okay, so Reed, a lot to unpack there, because I don't know if our viewers know, but you have made a bid to buy TikTok. You said it was around $50 million. Is that correct?
$50 billion. $50 billion.
I'm sorry, yeah, $50 billion, exactly, $50 billion. It's a big difference, B and M. So $50 billion, 5% goes to Sovereign Wealth Fund, and you're saying if you worked out all the kinks, and where does this deal stand right now? I know you said you've been in touch with the White House. What sort of promising future does this behold? Does it look like this actually may happen?
Absolutely. We're confident it can happen, and we think the additional 75 days is necessary to get our contracts and our paperwork in order. So what we're seeing is President Trump aligning us so that he can deliver a massive win for the American people, and we're trying to structure this so it's a massive win for President Trump, because this is truly legacy-building stuff for President Trump. This is one of his big topics on the campaign trail. He promised us a sovereign wealth fund in some way for the American people to be prosperous moving forward, and we're so happy to deliver that to President Trump as part of this offer, and I think he really likes that aspect of this.
Just about 20 seconds left with you. How influential is TikTok going to be in the next 5 years?
Oh, it's going to be massive. So we're buying it for $50 billion, but with the integrations that we see, we're seeing upwards of $1 trillion economic footprint in the United States alone.
All right, thanks, Reed. We got to leave it there, but I wish you well in this bid. I think it's going to be great for America. Thanks so much, Reed.
America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Getter.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth, and we're doing it on Getter
Every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
All right, folks, we're watching the close at the New York Stock Exchange, run wall right there. Another rough day. Looks like we're going to end more than 2,200 points lower on the Dow. NASDAQ almost 1,000 points lower. And again, this is on the heels of 1,600 lower in the Dow yesterday. And they are officially in bear market territory. In the NASDAQ, a lot of these things are not good from a technical standpoint when you're talking about stocks. I'm looking at some of these other big name stocks like Amazon down to 171. That sounds like $15 into Tesla's down almost $30 a share just today alone. Rough day. And for the second day in a row, silver lining, crude oil.
And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
That clown actually is a U.S. Congresswoman from the state of Minnesota who told her audience and her friends that I don't know. Maybe it is. It's rough if it is. Maybe, listen, you know me, I'm a free market guy. I'm ready for Trump to come out over the weekend and say, let's negotiate on some of these things. Maybe we're a little heavy-handed. It's not in his nature to do it, but I for one, a free market guy, certainly hopes he does. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying maybe let's try something else. We're down almost 4,000 Dow points in 2 days since we started this game. All right. Welcome and happy Friday. At least the market's closed. Can't go down anymore today. We got a big show for you today, so let's get right into it. Something that America seems to have quickly moved past is one of the greatest and most damaging scandals in the history of this country. And it's the Biden presidency, and specifically for years, elected Democrats and members of the mainstream media, the legacy corporate media, propaganda media, shamelessly covered for President Biden, claiming he was both cognitively and physically fit when he was clearly impaired and asleep at the wheel, as we often see now that Biden has moved on to life after politics, hoping. The truth is beginning to emerge. Ron Klain, a former Biden advisor, a senior Biden advisor, also was with Obama. Ron Klain, who defended Biden's infamous showing in that nail-in-the-coffin debate against Trump, he defended that, just now came out in the aftermath of all this and admitted that old Joe wasn't 100%. Wasn't even there a lot during the latter stages of his term, his presidency. This is newsworthy, solely because Klain said this right after Biden left the debate stage. Remember this?
And was suffering from a cold that really constrained his voice and constrained his ability to be forceful in the debate. And he was trying not to lose his voice, it was very scratchy and very impacted by his cold. But the president is absolutely sharp, fit, on top of his game.
Oh, yeah, I remember now. He lost that debate because he had a scratchy throat because he had just gotten back from Europe. 10 days prior, it was such BS. Sharp, fit, on top of his game. So what changed, Ron? I'll tell you what changed. You guys realized we caught you. We caught you lying. We caught legacy media lying. We caught Democrats lying. We caught Biden lying. We caught everyone lying. We caught Obama lying. We caught George Clooney lying. Ron Klain's comments reignited the debate about Biden's final month as president, if not final year or more. CNN brought the discussion to the roundtable, and as of usual, one of the network's conservative voices had to ask the obvious question.
And so should his advisors. I mean, talk about a big cover-up. I mean, we've been talking a lot about Donald Trump lately. I just want to ask a simple question. Who in the heck was running the country? If the president's mental acuity was in question and some days he's on and some days he's off, was the guy really capable of doing the job day to day? I honestly really question that. And I think a lot of Democrats who said at the time, oh, Joe Biden is the fittest guy in the world. He could do backflips. He could jump into the pool, run marathons, do 100 push-ups. When every freaking person who saw Joe Biden said, there's no one in hell this guy is physically fit. But they told us, don't believe your lying eyes because we're with him every single day. It wasn't true.
One more piece,
it wasn't true.
Just so people understand.
Really, honestly, folks, I mean, so many things happened in that 4 years, and especially towards the end when we knew he was cognitively gone, and now we know. There was a Politico reporter who wrote a book, who just released the book, and he said they would put tape, fluorescent tape, on places that they wanted Biden to go to and stand and deliver messaging, and he'd forget. He couldn't remember which tape, where he was supposed to go. It was bad. This guy was running the country, had his finger on the nuclear button. Think about that. And that's literal. That's not BS. That's literal. That nuclear football travels with the president no matter where he is. If he decides he wants to press the button, he presses the damn button. No one can stop him. Get it? Not even Austin Powers or Lloyd Austin. Austin Powers, Lloyd Austin. Same guy, same competency level, Lloyd Austin and Austin Powers. Michelle Obama now, somehow. Michelle Obama, if she didn't just go away like we'd all like her to, well, she just weighed in on kind of a bizarre topic. The former First Lady discussed men and the type of men that women like her seek out. Listen to this confusing quote.
With men, sometimes I think they're maybe a little bit too visual. I think there are a lot of women who are open to a lot of different kind of men and a lot of different kind of lifestyles. Women want a partner.
Kind of leading us to believe that all those reports that maybe Barack and Michelle are splitting up, maybe that's going to be the case. All right, let's jump down because I got a guy here who I really want to get to. The guy who knows, I mean, I think I met Mike recently, but boy, does he know his stuff. It's amazing how much he knows. It blows me away. I had no idea how much background that my next guest, a former, by the way, State Department official who negotiated U.S. foreign policy on international communications and information technology. But Mike is currently the director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Let's welcome back Mike Benz. Really good to have you, Mike. A couple of things I really want to talk to you about. NSA, there were six people that got bounced by Trump. 3 of them were on the heels of investigative journalist Laura Loomer. She had been digging into their past. Laura Loomer had a meeting with Trump in the White House. I'm sorry, at Mar-a-Lago or the White House I think it was White House on Wednesday, and these 3 get fired. What do you think of the firing, and what do you think of the method? By the way, I think Laura Loomer does extremely diligent work, investigative journalism.
Well, it's hard to say from the outside because, the precise reasons. Obviously, the rumor mill is sort of a bust with the idea that these were sort of Biden holdovers and had been disloyal or leaking to the press or various other ways to undermine the Trump presidency from within. During Trump 1.0, there was a fairly high tolerance level for sort of internal betrayals. I think likely because of the Trump administration's desire to constantly play ball with the international wing of the Republican Congress. But just like with so many other measures the Trump admin has taken in just its first 100 days here, there's effectively been no tolerance for leakers or for folks who are perceived to impugn the internal consensus building mechanism. And this is frankly totally precedented. President Obama fired hundreds of folks from the Pentagon, from the highest ranks on down. This is a very important thing for the president to feel that he has the complete and total support of his own military. I should note this is coming on the heels of the JFK files, where JFK was quite notoriously betrayed by his own military. I had an interesting experience in the White House when I was a Trump speechwriter, where I was asked to look up a quote, JFK's quotes about his own military generals, because the president, this is now 5 years ago, was upset at perceptions of betrayal from his military. And so given that this is happening at the NSA level, which is, of course, tucked within the U.S. military, and at the National Security Council level, which is the interagency of the Pentagon, the State Department, the CIA, we've seen the attempt to buy out the CIA officers, give them golden handcuffs if they agree to resign, a potential purging of the staff, Elon making a visit to the CIA headquarters this week. I think the Trump administration is finally wise to the sheer facts on the ground, which is that the attempts to overthrow the administration from within have come from our defense, diplomacy, and intelligence apparatus, and there's no tolerance anymore for these types of internal coups.
Mike, if I may, Mike Walls now on the heels of the Signalgate issue, who put the reporter Jeffrey Goldberg on that chat. Walt said it was him, and now, there are three people at least three, if not six, that maybe Mike Walls, or some of them that Mike Walls maybe should have gotten rid of. Is Mike Walls our NSA on short time?
It's unclear. I know that there has been some controversies around Mike Waltz. A lot of allegations from MAGA world that he is, one of the more sort of neocon, old school foreign policy types. It's unclear what exactly was the driving force behind picking him, whether or not that was a nod to the sort of John Thune, internationalist wing of Congress, the Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski. There is a tension between what a president wants and what a president can pull off. Oftentimes, since personnel is policy, the reassurances in order to hold a coalition together often manifest in the form of putting in someone else's guy to give reassurances, and therefore get sort of favors for favors buy-in for approval for budget cuts, or consensus for the president's budget in the next year. And so, the Signalgate affair to me is, it was an issue that most Americans don't feel super animated about in terms of the Houthis. It's a very far away.
I didn't mean to insinuate like that would be a reason to bounce Walls. I mean, I meant that, when you have a couple of these things that bubble up like this, you tend to want to, as a figurehead, as the leader of the free world, to say, well, look, we took care of this. And that would a lot of times entail letting someone go. And for me, if there has to be someone, he would be the most likely. Again, you're right. I am very MAGA and very skeptical of Walz's past, but this I don't want to trample on Trump world. If I may, before, I don't want to lose you. I only have a couple of minutes with you. But this Judge Boasberg that we've talked about, Judge Boasberg's daughter, and Boasberg's the one who stopped the flights of Tren de Agua from leaving, or tried to get them stopped, and it's still in the courts. His daughter, Catherine Boasberg, works for a group called Partners in Justice, it's an NGO taking money from USAID to house illegal aliens and keep them from being deported. How is this guy not in a conflict of interest?
Well, so many of these judges are. This is a very, very, very frequent setup where you have judges who are fully in league with the foreign policy establishment, or as the foreign policy establishment was called under the Obama presidency, the blob, which was, Obama's deputy national security advisor, Ben Rhodes, his term for the defense development diplomacy apparatus that links the Pentagon to the State Department to USAID to the intelligence services. And this is a very frequent setup. We've seen, dozens of these judges, both here and abroad. You see the same thing with judges in Romania who are making these crooked rulings. You see the same thing happening with judges in Ukraine and judges in all these foreign countries. It's a very common thing. I mean, the American Bar Association itself has these international programs that in 50 different countries were involved in. So oftentimes the way you sort of get the buy-in from the judges is you put their wives or their husbands or their sons and daughters, in these incubator networks, and then they're financially incentivized to rule in favor of it.
It should be as corrupt as propaganda. It's almost communist type propaganda. Mike, I got to go. I really appreciate your time. You have a great Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll get you back again real soon to talk about some of these things. Mike Bentz, everybody. Thank you.
You as well. Thanks.
Okay, folks. 2.5 minutes. We'll be right back. Okay, Mad Dog. Okay, here's the deal, Mad Dog. I can't see it because we're in the Orlando remote studio, and sometimes so what is my shot here? It looks beautiful. It looks like some sort of water and beach. What is it, Mad Dog?
It is the British Virgin Islands.
Ah, BVI's. Got it. Beautiful, beautiful. Well done. Well done. Well, tariff wars, boy, aren't we in the middle of it? Recession fears, stubborn inflation, no wonder gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs. In volatile markets like right now, don't sit on the sidelines with your head stuck in the sand. Take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many people, Americans, are turning to Birch Gold. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, actual coins and bars, real gold, the hard yellow metal. You use it to hedge against inflation and economic instability with gold. To learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text America to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Again, text the word America to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the BBB, Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, trust Birch Gold to help you protect your savings with gold. It took us decades to get into the tangled financial mess they're trying to unpack now. How long will it take to get out of it, and at what cost? Text America to 989898 today. All right, folks, it's been a very busy week in D.C., so I go to the man who knows everything that's going on. This guy has a pipeline into 1600 Pennsylvania and everywhere else. Man, the guy knows everything. Welcome, editor-in-chief of Just the News, John Solomon. So, John, a lot of news going back and forth with these NSA guys who got bounced. Laura Loomer exposed some information. Trump took it and ran with it. I like hearing that, because I think Laura Loomer does her homework, and I'm glad Trump listened, and I'm glad those folks are out. Now the question is, I posed that to Mike Pence. I'll pose it to you. Mike Walls, our NSA, it's two. I mean, what's the play here for Trump?
Well, listen, I think Waltz started strong, right? We had some good deals with Israel, and we got some good hostages released. We had some momentum towards a Russia-Ukraine peace deal, although it hasn't been executed yet. Certainly more move Biden never got. But then, there's been some sloppiness. And sometimes members of Congress who come in and run things, they get used to having everything run for them in Congress, and Congress dysfunction is totally normal. And it takes a while to realize you got to grab the reins. You got to be in charge. You got to tighten the ship up. But he's a military man. He knows how to be a straight and narrow leader. And I think he's just got to tighten the reins on the organization he runs, get back to the basics of what he was doing for President Trump in December, January, and February before the wheels came off a little bit. And I think the president will give him some runway to take control. Now, if he doesn't do a good job, Donald Trump has no problem saying you're fired. But I think Donald Trump likes Mike Waltz. He likes what he saw in the December, January, February timeframe. Let's clean up that ship, I think, is the president's message, and get back to national security and peace, and not not using Gmail like Joe Biden and using Signal like they shouldn't have been using.
Got it. So this other issue, and you and I both have known the president for a very long time, and I know he watches the markets. I'm not confusing the economy, which is, I believe, still strong, with the markets, which are clearly weak and being affected by this tariff, especially the China retaliatory tariff from this morning. So we got a couple of really substantial down days. How's he? I haven't really talked to anyone in the admin recently in the last couple of days. How is he handling this type of move in the markets? Because I know he keeps an eye on it.
Oh, no, he does. He clearly does. I mean, he's been a businessman all his life. The markets matter to him. He knew this was going to happen. He said it was going to happen. He warned the American people, don't get fooled. There'll be some panic for a while, but it will come back. Let's take a look at what the markets didn't react to today, because they just want to act out on tariffs. The jobs report way better than people thought. The economy is actually a little bit stronger since Donald Trump came into office. I think the moment that this flips, I think there could be a couple of weeks of a sour market. Once the first numbers come in for these external tariffs and people start seeing an unusual new amount of money coming into the United States Treasury, the sort of money that brings down the deficit, can bring down the debt long term, can bring down inflation, because we're going to shrink government alongside of it. I think the markets will rally and say, well, maybe this guy's got something. Well, look at the Treasury. We're moving towards driving down the deficit. Maybe one day we'll address it. Seeing is believing in the markets, and as soon as Donald Trump's tariffs take place. The other thing is what Donald Trump said to the world yesterday is, yeah, you're tariffed, but let's make a deal. He's a deal maker. And the more deals start to consummate with Canada and other places, I think you'll see the markets stabilize. And the fact of the matter is, beneath the panic, there's a very strong fundamental economy. In fact, I think the economy's gotten stronger since President Trump came in. The jobs report was way above expectation. What does that mean? It means employers have the confidence in the Trump economy to start hiring again.
Yeah, I tell you, right. There's confidence. The business environment was that Trump came in. They're happy. They will hire. They'll spend money on capital spending within their own companies if they feel that the next 4 years or 8 years are going to be strong business environments, lower taxes. Those are all positive. Oil prices coming down $11 a barrel in 2 days. Another positive. The question is how much pain to those of us who have 401ks and some of us who are active traders, how much do we take before we go, oh, enough is enough? But you're right. If he comes and says, I don't know, maybe Brazil wants to negotiate a deal, that would be fantastic. I think things would turn around right away. Go ahead.
100%. And by the way, we had Peter Navarro on last night. He led off the show. In fact, he said that President Trump made him come on Real America's Voice. Isn't that great? I love to hear that. the truth of the matter is that Peter Navarro, the president, is completely comfortable. He's ready to ride this out because he knows the long-term benefit he's going to bring to the United States is worth the short-term pain. I think you'll see a message a lot. He'll come out, he'll talk or reassure things. It's going to be a 2 or 3 week uncomfortable time, but I think people who play the market long will probably do well. In the meantime, those who buy gold, like Birch Gold and others, it's the time to buy gold, man. Gold is just going up like crazy. It's going to hit 35, 3,900 in a few weeks. So gold buying is fun for people. I think people who play the long market, I think in the summer and the fall, the Trump economy will create a roar in the market once people realize how the fundamental flow of cash has changed into the U.S. Treasury.
I'll give you another one, and this is where it goes. So we import about $4 trillion worth of goods a year, $4 trillion. And basically, we were letting people come in for free. Very, very low barriers to dump their goods into America. If you just raise everything to 25%, and Trump has gone higher than 25% on an average, 25% is $1 trillion that goes, as you point out, John, directly into the general fund, right into the Treasury.
Yeah. You take that with the fact that you're starting to shrink these government. I've been meeting a lot of unemployed bureaucrats on the street in Washington, D.C., and it's starting to shrink here. And that combination is going to create a downward pressure in inflation that we haven't had a chance to see in 5 years. Indeed. And I think the markets will get super excited. The revenue starts coming in. You start realizing, hey, maybe we're fixing the deficit and debt, not lip service. We're doing it. They get the budget deal through in May.
Let's not forget, Donald Trump is the only human being in the history of this planet to bring oil prices down below zero. And that happened in I believe it was 2018 under Donald Trump.
18. 2018, you're right.
I got to jump, John. Really good having you on. John Solomon, everyone, make sure you watch his show. Brilliant guy, tapped right into all things politics.
I want to shout out Robin Parker. I was talking, I love the whole Florida family, so I want to shout them all out.
There you go. There you go. We love you too, brother.
All right, guys.
All right, folks, before we head to break, just wanted to remind you all about my podcast and YouTube page. You got to go over there. We update that stuff daily with a bunch of new content that's not just this, but a lot more. It's things we're doing all over the place. I want you to hear the show, tons of other content you can get at any time, anywhere, but you must be sure to subscribe on the YouTube page and on the podcast channels, whether it's Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it. All right, we will be back 2.5 minutes. Chi-Town. That's where we are right here. Gotta love Orlando. Thank you, Mad Dog. Thank you, guys in control in West Palm when I'm here in Orlando. All right, folks, the IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th fast approaching, about a week and a half away, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting simply not an option. The longer you wait, the worse it gets for you. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can possibly do. April 15th marks another tax year that's passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never, never, never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Well, because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid, with proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10, $10,000, or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion, with a B, billion, in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder and protect yourself and your property from seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th, just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. Okay, let's go to our pal, our friends. From Juarez, Mexico, beautiful Juarez, Mexico, I hear. Rav, host of Law and Border, Ben Berkwam, and Oscar Ramirez is with him as well. Guys, beautiful Juarez. I heard it's beautiful this time of year. What's going on there, folks?
Yeah, well, this is, actually, it's a pretty nice weather. You don't want to come here in the summertime. It's hot as hell. But right now it's a little overcast, so the weather's not too bad. But I was just going to say this from last night. Don't eat the sushi. I'm not feeling great today. Don't eat Wada sushi. But I will say this, one good thing that is coming right here. We're finishing up our week-long trip across Mexico. We were down in Culiacan, down in Sinaloa. This is the first time I've seen this. We've actually got Mexican National Guard troops here checking. They're inspecting. They're doing a pre-inspection of vehicles before they cross the bridge into El Paso, looking primarily for illegals and fentanyl. So this is the Trump effect in effect, the threat of tariffs in action. You've actually got Mexico responding down here. And obviously, you know, Eric, we have the lowest numbers on the border that we've seen. But right now, the biggest battle is the internal cartel struggle, the cartel fighting each other and the cartel fighting the government. So we're covering that. It's not the safest place to be, but hopefully, as time goes on, more of the cartel will be eliminated.
Yeah, you just stay safe. Oscar, weigh in on this news that we woke up to horrendous news of the 21-year-old University of South Carolina football star, 4.0 GPA, who was run down he was riding a motorcycle, run down by an illegal who was here illegally. He was given one of those mandates to appear in court. He blew that off, ends up killing another person. These what are these little chits they're giving? Hey, come appear, and sometimes they're 5, 6, 7 years down into the future, right?
Yes, and this is the consequences of open border policies of Joe Biden. This is all the consequences of all these Democrats that they push for this globalist agenda, the global compact of migration, United Nations, opening up the border and creating a new market for the cartels and NGOs. All of them, they need to be held accountable and complicit for what they have done, for the crimes against humanity, and for these families. Who is going to just defend these families now for the crimes that these people that they came illegally into the country of the United States and committed these horrific crimes? Everybody that came illegally through a non-port of entry should be returned back and deported back to their country. There's no question whatsoever. But the whole thing is that there needs to be consequences. That's the first thing that I said. Alejandro Mayorkas needs to be charged with crimes against humanity, and all these people that push for all these crimes that are happening right now to innocent people in the United States, man, they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, and Ben, take it a little bit further. Yeah, Alejandro Mayorkas. Oh, you mean the border is secure? Alejandro Mayorkas. Yeah, sure. How are the border agents taking this Judge Boasberg, who stopped Trump from sending Tren de Aragua thugs and criminals back to Venezuela?
Well, they're disgusted by it. Border Patrol has wanted to do their job for the last 5 years. They weren't allowed to under Joe Biden. In fact, they felt like they were having to break their oath to do the job they were being told to do by Alejandro Mayorkas, and now they're able to do it again. And so to have these judges, these activist, leftist judges blocking that, it's treason. I mean, you're intentionally, and as Oscar said, they should be held as complicit for the crimes. They should be accessories to the deaths of any American who they protected, willingly, knowingly protected to be here illegally. The same goes down here in Mexico. You see some of this happening against the cartels. You see some action against the cartels, but nothing is going to change until the politicians, the DAs, the judges, and the media that is complicit in protecting the cartels, both in Mexico and in the United States, are held accountable. And this is just one more example of that. We're going to have more angel families. We're going to have more deaths in America and in Mexico until we hold these people accountable.
Very, very quickly, I'm trying to figure this out. Oscar, so cartels are fighting the traffic, fentanyl, drugs, and humans. They get across the border, and sometimes there's an NGO, there's a church that's willing to take some of these folks. Is the church actually on our side of the border working with Mexican drug cartels?
Well, it's just it's a combination of a lot of things. It's because they opening up the borders. The NGOs they strategically put themselves in open border gaps, and they know that the cartel it is going to drop. It was dropping by the thousands before Trump, came into office and put order on this. It has the numbers have dropped like drastically. But a lot of these NGOs, a lot of these progressive, liberal, mercenary activists, they were involved with the cartels. Just to name a few, No More Debts. It is located in Arizona. They were completely involved with the Sinaloa cartel, and now that you have the cartel that is being pushed because the Mexican government is being pushed to a corner that there are, the threat of a tariff, naming the cartels as terrorists. Now the cartels are drifting more into fighting each other for the trafficking of synthetic drugs. So that is the next fight that the Trump administration needs to enforce more the border so they can crack down and lower down the trafficking of drugs into the United States.
And just real quick, Eric, we have evidence that these organizations were working directly with the cartels in many places. We have maps that were created by the NGOs that were given to illegals by the cartel coyotes. We have Border Patrol that says basically the NGOs are the go-between between the cartel and Border Patrol. So they're clearly complicit.
Yeah, they're holding tanks for the cartels until they can get these people that they're trafficking through. And by the way, the Judge Boasberg that stopped Trump from the deportation flight so far, his daughter works for an NGO. Yeah, doing exactly that. I'll leave it right there. Oscar, that's Ben, right. Thank you guys, and please be safe, fellas.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Okay, folks, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Well, look at that. That's a manatee tank. I just saw a big old manatee swim by. Oh, look at this. This is amazing. These are great shots. Where'd you find that, Mad Dog? Where is that?
I gotta hide my secrets.
Okay. What city is it, though? Can you give me that?
It's in Homosassa Springs.
State?
Florida.
Florida. Okay, got it. Well done. It's a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, not necessarily the stock market today, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. Truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to simply go away. They're still in place. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in. Massive company doing great work. Their doctors, and they're real doctors, are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Again, prescription medical kits, right? Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications, guidebooks to assist in the proper use of the medications, from the flu to strep throat, from COVID to bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas. The Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your whole family safe. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to www.twc.health/voice today and order twc.health/voice and use the promo code VOICE and save 10%. All right, folks. Do you know who Nate Baker is, by the way? Kind of alluded to him earlier in the show. If you only watched the legacy mainstream leftist propaganda media, you wouldn't know the name. And the reasons being this: his story, more specifically his death, is an inconvenient truth for the left. Nate Baker's tragic death doesn't suit the legacy media's narrative, which is to support keeping illegal immigrants here in America. Nate Baker was a 21-year-old University of South Carolina student, 4.0, by the way. He was also captain of the football team. He lost his life in a hit-and-run crash by an illegal alien, whose name I won't even dare to say here because I only want to say Nate Baker's name. That illegal alien was driving without a license. He struck Nate's motorcycle with his truck, and then that illegal horrendously fled the scene. That's the cost of illegal immigration, one of the small costs. There's so many of them that the left doesn't want to even acknowledge. The loss of even one American life is too many, but there have been just too many more than that. Nate Baker was killed by an illegal alien, and the legacy media didn't even talk about it. I'm not okay with that. I know you're not okay with that either. And yet, here we are, a legacy media, propaganda media group that has learned absolutely nothing because it only exists to serve the liberal agenda, the left's liberal progressive agenda. Let's get into it. Have you ever watched a so-called journalist, a veteran journalist at that, make excuses for a terrorist? Well, you want to see something like that? Here, I'll show you.
The terrorists became very mean and very cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you, or they just didn't have food?
No, I think they starved me, and they would often eat in front of me and not offer me food.
Oh, are you sure you're not understanding the feelings of the terrorists, says Leslie Stahl, you nut job? Have you ever watched someone make pitiful excuses for pitiful news reporting? Oh, you want to? Okay, watch.
One thing that came up quite frequently was the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Indeed.
And our editorial leadership today says, we wish we'd gotten on that earlier.
And you, in fact, expressed a regret yesterday in the hearing. That was one of the newsworthy things. You came out whole from that hearing.
There is no absolving someone who knows better than to do a terrorist bidding. And there's also no absolving someone who knows better than to follow government orders to hide a story that could change the outcome of an entire presidential election. Leslie Stahl, now a repeat offender, sat in front of a victim of a kidnapping, beating, and torture, by the way, by Hamas, and delivered her disgusting propaganda. Watch.
They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you, or they just didn't have food?
Monstrous, disgusting behavior by Leslie Stahl, making excuses for violent kidnappers, terrorists. Those clowns killed 1,400 Jews, innocent kids going to music festivals. And her own colleagues in legacy media will never dare to criticize her because they're all in the same insidious, self-congratulatory, protecting the left at all costs club. You cannot distrust or hate the likes of CBS News enough. They're even more despicable than one can imagine. And the same network slammed President Trump for mentioning the Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember? Oh, I'll show you if you forgot.
You know, this is 60 Minutes. And we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, I think it's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about?
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me. They found the laptop. Leslie.
Can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
You know, the really odd thing is there, folks. I was there at the White House that day that Trump was being interviewed by Leslie Stahl. Inside, I was waiting outside the Rose Garden, waiting. He did an hour with me outside the Rose Garden, and he did that interview first. He was livid. He was so pissed that she did that. That was an ambush. And by the way, she was wrong. She was wrong the whole time. This is why the legacy media, their days are numbered, and they know it.
I'm very worried about the press, extremely worried about the press. I despair. Seriously, I worry greatly, and I think there are other institutions that have been suffering. And you're right not to blame Donald Trump 100%, obviously.
Well, you better despair. Leslie Stahl, who on the eve of the 2020 presidential election falsely claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop story cannot be verified on 60 Minutes, no less, and denied the established fact that the FBI spied on the Trump campaign. We knew that. Laments the end of legacy media now, almost without irony, without even beginning to comprehend her own role, her own being complicit in the fall of the legacy media for their BS. How very ivory tower of her. But speaking of that nasty Hunter Biden laptop from hell, another organization knowingly and willingly benched that icky, sticky, tricky story. They hid it. And now they're trying to desperately cover their own tracks. Here's NPR's CEO, Catherine Maher, doing cleanup on aisle 5 with the very willing help of a colleague who clearly got some notes beforehand. Watch.
But what made news was your regret that you had not done a better job institutionally on the Hunter Biden story.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not on the editorial side of the organization, and I was not there at the time.
But you represented it as your feeling and as the feeling of the editorial team today.
That's correct, because we feel as though it was a big story and we didn't get on it early enough. And so is that a mistake? Sure.
Oh, is that a mistake? Is that a mistake? Is that a mistake? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'd say it was a mistake. It influenced an entire election. 20% of voters said that after they would have voted differently if they had known that Joe Biden's son did that nefarious, treasonous things in his father's name. And your organization collects government funding, NPR.
They assume that you didn't cover that story more fully because you were biased.
I do understand that, and that's why I think it's important to acknowledge when we're not.
But you don't think that was bias?
I was not there, and I cannot speak to the conversations that happened.
You know, why even bother doing it, NPR? That reporter is falling all over himself, practically reaching across the table to Catherine, the assist on that, and they assume you covered that Hunter Biden story because of bias. Oh, they did. They also covered it up because Team Biden and his 3-letter politicized agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA, and their army of goons pushed them to do just that. And they willingly did it because of their bias, because they knew it was a story that could hurt the big guy's chances against the evil Donald Trump. Oh, but guys, it gets even better than that. Now, it doesn't matter because what you see is what you get. Whenever the left is in a pickle, they just redefine what words mean to suit their narrative, their agenda. Here's Catherine twisting your head on the word trust.
we can acknowledge that we are not always perfect. My belief is that it's not our goal to be trusted, it's our goal to be trustworthy, which means we get up every single day and we try to do the best job so that we earn the worth, that we are worth people's trust, but we never assume that we're trusted.
Okay. So let me get this straight. Lots to unpack there in just 13 seconds of absolutely and utter gaslighting BS of epic proportions. So one, we can acknowledge that we are not always perfect. Not really. You were forced to admit that you got it wrong because you had no other choice and were backed into a corner and squeezed on it. And two, I believe it's not our goal to be trusted. Well, what the hell is your goal? Well, then three, our goal is to be trustworthy. Oh, I got it. Don't be trusted, but be trustworthy. What? I beg to understand the difference. Thank you. Utter failure. Definitely not that. Having been that in a very, very long time, you folks aren't even journalists. Interesting. Desperate attempts at making some iteration of trust work for them after they blew your trust out of the water by lying and covering up for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Again, these are the same folks who say a man can be a woman and have a baby, that a pedophile isn't really a disgusting animal, but a minor attracted person. And that President Trump is literally a fascist, a Hitler, a Stalin, and a Mussolini, all rolled up into one taco. There's a lot to unpack there. A lot of shock out there of this editorial in the New York Times. One of the worst repeat offenders in legacy media. They point out what we already know and have known since before the election even happened in November. The Democrats are a lost case. But in the same breath, and they write, and I quote, "We recognize that the Democratic Party is in a difficult position. It must compete with a Republican Party that shows an alarming hostility to American democracy. And we urge Democrats to continue speaking out against Mr. Trump's authoritarian behavior, his bullying of military leaders, judges, law firms, universities, and the media, his disdain for Congress, his attempts to chill speech through deportation." These people are horrible, horrible people. The legacy media, you can't hate them enough. Absolutely can't hate them enough. All right, before we go to break, I just want to remind you about that podcast again and my YouTube page. Make sure you go there, subscribe. We give you a whole bunch of new, unique content. We put it up, not just the show, but we do a bunch of shorts. We do some man on the street stuff. We'll show you where we are a lot of times. And if something breaks and it's big, we'll get there. But you must subscribe. YouTube page, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, both of us. Back in 2.5 with Bannon. looks beautiful. I want to be there, but it looks beautiful, and I want to be exactly where I am in South Florida, the free state in the union. But let's go to a guy who's in a less free state, but nonetheless probably the biggest freedom fighter I've ever known, Mr. Steve Bannon. Steve, the tariffs obviously are roiling the markets, not the economy, because I'll tell you, I believe, and been doing this for 50 years. I believe the economy is very, very strong, but markets are taking that on the chin, and probably rightly so for now. Absolute transparency, truth to God, right now, I was buying stock all afternoon into that massive downdraft on the close.
Okay, it's official. It's official, because Eric Bolling's a deal guy. It's official. Eric Bolling's buying the dip. Okay, normally Kramer's got his in buying the dip. They're trying to cause a crash. They've got Katie Tur. Katie Tur did an entire hour of her show, the 3 to 4 yesterday, from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And Eric, as you know, Katie Tur does not know the difference between live stock and preferred stock. So they're just trying to instigate a crash. The
good news is,
I do have an observation.
The good news is Kramer says buying the dip won't work, which means everything Kramer's ever said in his entire career has been wrong. There's an opposite Kramer, the fund that does better than anything he's ever put together. But so there's a little silver lining, I guess.
The inverse Kramer. But to be realistic, at 4 o'clock, the market closed on the biggest week in President Trump's presidency, first or second term, a historic week. Eric Bolling's show with surrogates. Now, we don't need people from the White House. We don't need Peter Navarro or Scott Besson or Lutnick. They do other shows. That's fine. And that should be done. We'll get them on at the appropriate time. But they should have 2 economists, 2 businessmen, 2 union guys packed on your show at 4 o'clock to talk about what's going on. One of the reasons for this big sell-off, the messaging, President Trump's doing the messaging. He's put on Truth Social. Scott does a good job going on, CNBC. Lutnick, I think, is doing a better job when he's not talking about robotics or the dollar. He's doing good. Peter's always good. He gets a little technical, but that's all good. But you need, as you know, they should have had 100 surrogates lined up here. Businessmen, economists, academics, and union people in Middle America.
You know what they lost? The messaging they lost, and they had it for a while. Everyone's looking at, okay, well, we're going to give it back to them the way they've been giving it to us, maybe a little more lenient because we're half of the number, the tariff number. But they originally, Trump, in your turn, the first one and this one, it was all about, we're going to raise it with the intent of lowering it when the rest of the world realizes this is a bad idea to fight us. And they're losing that messaging war. And I don't know why they're not out there, as you point out.
Well, I think hopefully this weekend. I understand that the first team is going to go on the Sunday shows and then start carpet bombing on Sunday afternoon and Sunday night and throughout the week. So we'll have to see. I think there's a very strong message here. President Trump's reorienting the world trade system around America first and American citizens first. It's very powerful. The forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer. It's a very powerful message. The economics, the great jobs report today and others. And part of it is that MSNBC, NBC, and MSNBC are trying to cause a panic to drive the market down, just like Kramer panicked back in 2008. As you remember, we played that yesterday. I just think we need to be on offense all the time. We're on offense on deportations. We're on offense on the national security strategy. We're on offense on everything. You need to really be on offense on this. And President Trump has got too much on his shoulders, Eric, to be having a message all the time. He's doing a great job on truth, but his plate's full. We need to be out there, bang, 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 just, offense.
Listen, I'll agree. I'll agree. We got oil prices down $11 a barrel in 2 days. We have interest rates that are coming down dramatically. These are good things for the economy. You have strong jobs report. You have strong employment. There's a lot of things that are pumping on the right side of the economy right now. They got to get this messaging away from the stock market, just away from the stock market, because it gives the other side too much ammo.
Yeah. Commodities are dropping. Interest rates. The 10-year was under 4 for today. The huge jobs report.
Yep.
Geopolitically, This actually, the tariff is about a reorientation of the world trading system. You've already got people, half of the people that have the reciprocal tariffs have already called and said, okay, we surrender, including Vietnam.
I got an idea.
Vietnam,
Listen. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
Smartest man in the room. Put your glasses on for a second, Steve. Jack Posobiec posted this picture 2 days ago. We were trying to get you on. We kind of mixed signals 2 days ago. Here's a picture of you and the president. And, I believe I think that's Mar-a-Lago, if I'm not mistaken. But then we zoomed in a little bit on that other picture in the middle. What's that picture in the middle? MD, show me the other. Can you zoom in on that? Can you get in on that a little bit? Can you see what that says, Steve? Can you?
I can't say it's too.
Bannon and Bowling, the summer tour. I'm telling you, we need to get out there. We'll get out there and talk to the folks.
Let's
and we'll have this
I'm
discussion.
All in. A street fighter and a pirate. How's that? Street fighter and a pirate.
A gangster and
I'm
pirates.
in. Bowling, I'm in.
Yeah, gangsters and pirates.
I'm
I love
in,
them
brother.
both. Have a great weekend, Steve.
We'll talk to Rob Sigel. We'll line that up.
All right, brother.
Thank you so much on a Friday. Appreciate you. Okay, folks, a historic day, big sell-off, orderly, not no panic there, although the MSNBC and CNBC trying their best to stir up a panic. Here's what we're going to do. We got kind of a longer cold open because so much going on. Let's play it, and I will return with observations and analysis as we open the war room.
It's so important that you bring up the fact that the Biden administration was late on figuring out just how dangerous inflation would be to working Americans. And again, said it was transitory. It ended up not being transitory. But Steph, it's very interesting. You bring up the Treasury Secretary, who again a couple of weeks ago said, cheap goods, affordable goods, not a God-given right for American consumers. And then saying yesterday, well, other countries shouldn't push back against these high tariffs. They're just going to do that. And we showed some clips of Scott Bessent. He looks very uncomfortable. And I suspect it's because neither he nor many of the people who are advising the president, certainly not those on Wall Street supporting him, actually agree with the president on tariffs. I mean, Donald Trump stands almost completely alone in believing that he can reorder, 45 years of globalism.
Bingo, Joe. My sources say that Scott Bessent is kind of the odd man out here. And in the inner circle that Trump has, he's not even close to Scott Bessent or listening to him. Some have said to me he's looking for an exit door to try to get himself to the Fed, because in the last few days, he's really hurting his own credibility and history in the markets. Those who have said this man actually understands how the markets work, and what's happening right now is only going to hurt markets. And even for Scott Bessent to say a few weeks ago, getting cheap goods fast is not part of the American dream. No, it's not part of the American dream, but it's part of the way Americans live, especially people who are economically vulnerable. They don't have the option to say, nope, I like higher things that cost more. They need low-cost things because they don't make that much money.
That Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve now face. Before, what we talked about was inflation, the high cost of everything, homes, mortgages, cars, whatever, caught up in the COVID supply chain crunch that we had a couple of years ago. Price is still too darn high. I will filter myself as it's a family show.